October the 14th, 6 o'clock p.m. regular meeting to order. And well, please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance as you may. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Thank you. And Madam Clerk, let's do roll call.
Vice Mayor Ferrer-Rivas.
Present.
Councilmember Lowe.
Present.
Councilmember Wellender.
Yes.
Councilmember Dean.
Present.
Mayor Gurney.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, please silence your cell phones or any other devices that might be disruptive. And process for public comment. This evening there will be two opportunities for members of the public to address items not appearing on the agenda. The early public comment period, agenda item number 1, will be limited to 10 speakers. Each speaker will be allowed up to 2 minutes. Speakers who do not have the opportunity to speak during this time will be allowed to make their comments later in the agenda under item number 10. And we will make sure that you are aware when public comment is accepted. Let's see, presentations. Any presentations tonight? Seeing none. Comments from the public. This is the first opportunity for the public to comment on items not on the agenda. Anybody want to make a comment? Seeing none, we will move on to meeting dedications. Any meeting dedications? Well, I will make one. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Wellender.
I would like to dedicate this evening's meeting to Buck Sebastiani.
San Giacomo.
He was married to San Giacomo, correct. And I think no real introduction to his family is necessary other than he's been a stalwart in the Sonoma County ag business. I think the last I read, he had 1,600 acres of grapeseed farms, and he has now, there are 2 boys carrying on, but he certainly was an individual that exhibited a quiet spirit, but someone who was very committed to helping his community.
All right, thank you. And that was also going to be who I was going to dedicate the meeting to. And actually, I knew them quite well, and very unfortunate. He's the last of a generation of San Giacomos to pass. So now we have the young Turks, so to speak. Anyway, moving on. Council members' reports and comments. Do we have any? Patricia Ferrer-Rivas, take it away.
I'm going to try to keep this quick, but unfortunately there is quite a bit. Okay, so I attended the Sonoma Clean Power, I'll do that one first because it's the most complicated, on October 3rd. So one of the things that they're doing that is, I won't go into too much detail around this, is they are going to be purchasing prepayment bonds, which allows them to purchase energy earlier at a lower price, and then in the end it ends up being a benefit to the customers and lowering the potential 8% savings passed on to customers over, over 8 years. They're going to probably do bonds of $12 million worth of bonds. They're working with Goldman Sachs. They would end up being California municipal bonds, so green bonds. So if you want bonds in your portfolio that support local energy, that's one thing that you can talk to your investment advisors about. And then also, one of the things which is very unfortunate for some people, I'm not really excited about this announcement, but currently nearly all of the electric customers in California will begin paying for a 5-year extension of the Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant starting in 2025. And only municipal utilities and rural cooperatives are exempt. But Sonoma Clean Power is neither of those. And so basically, the state of California, to be able to address issues around the grid, is requiring all of the customers in California to to get their allocation of energy from Diablo Canyon. And since, so Sonoma Clean Power has the ability to take that energy and not use it, right? Or they get the energy and they use it, but then, it's like they have to pay for it. So it's putting this new legislation kind of puts Sonoma Clean Power in a very difficult situation if they don't want to have nuclear power on their on their list of powers. The Sonoma Clean Power Evergreen. If you're on Evergreen, it would not have any nuclear power in it. If you're not on Evergreen, there's potential between, I think, 1% to 9% of the portfolio would come from nuclear. One of the things that we agreed to take the energy and to purchase it and use it, because it basically, otherwise, the customers end up paying for it and not getting the benefit of, the energy. So it was really from that point of view, that decision. But at the same time, the board agreed that we would be doing a number of things to make sure that we were able to have, full transparency around the sources of energy, that we have get a clear plan for the closure of Diablo Canyon, and that that we would add grid capacity of and advance our geothermal power as a way. So if we have enough power and we don't have to buy that power, that would be another way to help go around this. And so those are the key things. I won't go into great detail around it. It's unfortunate because it's mostly because I know that there's next generation nuclear that people are beginning to talk about that has some potential benefits, but Diablo Canyon is it's a very old style of development of nuclear energy. Okay, so that's that. I'm glad I don't have to talk about that one anymore. And then on September 25th, I attended the Sonoma Valley Citizens Advisory Commission meeting, and they're continuing to define ways to really get people to see that commission as a place for the community to come and have discussions about key issues, and certainly about issues like the general plan development. And so they're really looking about how to engage more and how to reach out to the community, but also for people to understand what SVCAC is, which is a joint powers agreement between the county and the city of Sonoma, to have a place where we can talk about primarily land use issues that affect both the city and the county. And so we can have discussions around issues around that there too. And then with the discussions, the commission then would write, letters to the appropriate entities that we're trying to influence based on what we've heard from the community. So the discussions there are often very good. Can be a late night, but but the discussions are often very rich. And on October 10th, I attended the mayor and city council members dinner in Roanoke Park with two of my lovely council members, Councilmember Ding and Councilmember Wellender. And so I attended the portion for the mayors, and we had a presentation from the Sonoma County Public Infrastructure and Zero Waste, what is it, ZW, Zero Waste, what is the S for?
Zero Sonoma.
Sonoma, thank you. That's a good one, yeah. I hate acronyms, so I always... Okay, so they talked about a number of different projects that they are moving ahead on. One is expanding the landfill, because landfill in Sonoma County is getting filled. So there's a point where you can't put any more garbage in the landfill, and you have to start expanding to other areas of landfill. But at the same time, they're looking at doing having their own mitigation bank. I won't go into what a mitigation bank is, but it helps counter, if you're doing carbon in one place, or if you're using land in one place at the mitigation bank would preserve land someplace else anyway. So having their own so that they're not having to pay a mitigation banker to be their own banker. And then there's a program for a new organic compost facility that sounded very exciting. And then also a new hazardous waste facility. So a lot going on there. And then we got a presentation during the meeting from SCTA RCPA, which is the Sonoma County Transportation Authority, and the Regional Climate Protection Association, right? Agency. So there was a lot that was presented there. I won't go into all of that. And then the last thing was went with Commissioner Don Back from the Planning Commission, and we participated in the Valley Cemetery cleanup for a couple of hours. And I ran into another one of our council members there too, so it's quite fun.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else? Mr. Ding?
I have one meeting to report. Last Monday, I attended a Sonoma Valley Groundwater Sustainability Agency ad hoc committee. I'm the member of ad hoc committee, so-called oversight, and for the internal management for the Valley of the Moon Water District. So the three of us are a member, and me, I represent the city, and Steve Rogers represent the water district of the Moon Valley, and also Isaac Jenkins and representing the farmers, local user, groundwater users. Yeah, we just listen and staff's hard work and what kind of project they are doing, what is the money they are going to spend, and pretty interesting. And what is the more interesting thing is, and again, and we talked about the possibility, and the two water districts is possible to merge it together, which in the topic was raised, I think, in the middle of the last year by Steve and Rogers, because geographically we're in the same place, and also we are using the same the system to manage the water and provide the clients, and see if possible we can merge and improve our service. Hopefully we can reduce the rate of the water. And from my side, what is more important is we always talk about the social equity or inequalization. That is a very big topic, but maybe technically we from this water district, if possible, we can merge. So Steve and Rogers would like to talk with his board, see if they can get any the research, any fund to do some this kind of feasibility in the study. So then I echo what Steve and Rogers comments. So I said maybe I want to bring this topic to our city, see if we can work together and see what is good for our the local users, or in the short term and the long term. Yeah, that is very interesting. Overall, that is maybe that's a good trend, because right now the system and we are using, and we need to upgrade, and also we need have the new technology. The only thing I I tell the people, I said, we have the existing staff and the employee, I don't want to see they were losing their job, that is maybe that is not a very important part. I'm not sure. So I want to bring this topic back to our city to see if possible, next year when we have the general budget meeting, see if we can consider this kind of thing. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Mr. Wallander, anything?
Yes, I have three brief meetings. The most exciting one, the most entertaining one was North Bay Watershed Association had a meeting at Mare Island, specifically at Mare Island Brewery. The own Yes, yeah. It's the owner of the brewery happens to also be a hysterical nut and knows a tremendous amount of history about Mare Island. And I sat there just in awe of some of the stories he was sharing. And probably the one that's the quickest to tell is that they had a fairly good communication system at Mare Island. So on that fateful December 7th, 1941, when Pearl Harbor was bombed, the communication went from Pearl Harbor to Mare Island to Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So that was kind of cool. So again, I was embarrassed to think that I've only been to Mare Island 4 times in almost 40 years, and twice was associated with city council. It's, I think, a pretty incredible place. And my last little anecdotal detail was during World War II, Mare Island had 50,000 workers on the island, which was unbelievable. The next group I met with was the Susan Gord and the various homeless partners that get together about once a month just to talk about services. And I am just happy to say that although none of the services are directly in city limits, we have about 4 very active givers that I'm always proud to hear about what their contributions have been. And the last one, I actually met with this homeless board for a special meeting to approve the recommendations of how the funds were going to be distributed this go around. It was in several millions of dollars. My sad comment is that nobody from Sonoma Valley had applied for the money. So once again, we missed the cycle, but I am motivated to see if I can't assist and help facilitate our providers with chasing after some of that money. And that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Lowe. Anything?
Nothing for me. Today would have been my meeting of the Sonoma County Transportation Authority, and I was here and I was unable to be there. So I'll find out what happened and report it next time. Sorry.
You're excused. Okay, and I'm just a ribbon-cutting fool, so that's what I've been doing. Moving along, it is time now for the city manager comments and announcements, one of my favorite things.
All right, thank you. Just 3 quick updates or announcements. First, on October 18th, that's this Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. in this room, we'll have an artist reception for the posters on the wall for the Valley of the Moon Vintage Festival posters. So that's this Friday night. And then on October 22nd, there's a free community swim day at Sonoma Splash. And just as a reminder, the city puts in funds for Sonoma Splash every year, and some of those funds are used to do these community days to provide free swim access to the community. And then finally, we do have one more cemetery, actually 2 more cemetery cleanups coming. The next one is October 26th, and that will be at Mountain Cemetery, and that's from 9 a.m. to noon. That's Saturday, October 26th. That's all I have today.
Thank you. We have a question from the dais.
Just because most of us will be out of town on Friday, are people aware that I just don't want all the, this is such a great display of art, and I don't want people to feel like we're flaked on them. We have a meeting, all of us are attending in Long Beach, so do they know?
Yeah, I did mention to him that the council and myself will be traveling that day, so if some people do get back in time and want to stop by, then absolutely, but it depends on people's flight schedules, but I did give them a heads up. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. And now for one that's even more favorite to me. City attorney comments.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did have an update for the council related to some new legislation. As you know, a couple years ago, the legislature amended the Political Reform Act so that campaign contributions can be essentially the source of a conflict. Campaign contributions over $250 would require you to recuse yourself or disclosure requirements, etc. So the legislature did take that up, and the governor recently signed SB 1243, which increases the amount that you can receive before you have to recuse and disclose. It's now $500 and not $250, so it's a lot closer to the campaign limit, contribution limit in the city of Sonoma. The city of Sonoma's contribution limit does have an inflation adjustment, which I don't believe SB 1243 has, and it also cleans up a few other things. So we are working on a memo for the council related to that, and we'll be updating our forms because we have campaign contribution disclosure documentation in there that needs to be updated as well. So just wanted to give you that update.
We have a question.
Not so much a question, a comment. By campaign contributions, these are candidate campaign contributions, not contributions to an issue.
That's absolutely correct.
Thank you for clarifying.
Candidate contributions.
Or a measure, yes,
Right.
thank you.
All right, that concludes comments, and we will move to item number 7, consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon in a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these matters unless members of the council or staff request specific items to be removed and discussed separate.
Mayor, I would like to have the question about the 7.4. Not necessarily in the pull out. I just quick question, or just that the Ashley McCartan, showing up because she's a new employee, and then she did a very good job.
Was there a question in there?
And my question is, the water and the quality partnership, why you choose this partner, this company, yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you, Councilmember Ding. So this is the Sonoma Marine Water Saving Partnership, right? So this is a partnership that the City of Sonoma participates in. It's kind of driven by Sonoma County Water Agency, and so it's kind of a group that we meet together with occasionally, and it helps the City of Sonoma and other participating agencies within like the Sonoma County area be more competitive for federal grants. So this is administered by the Water Efficiency and Energy Use Grant, which is administered by the Bureau of Reclamation. And so the partnership is a really convenient way for the City of Sonoma to participate in these kinds of grants and get funding, which helps us to kind of supplement our, in this case, Water Conservation Fund budget. So it's a great partnership, and it does a lot. So the Marin Water Saving Partnership is very active in the Sonoma County and Marin County area.
Thank you, Ashley. Also welcome join us, T, and you can get this opportunity to make full use of your knowledge, education, and experience. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
I have a quick question for
Quick
Ashley.
On this item,
Yes,
or should we
this
just pull
item.
this item? I mean, is
It's
everybody
just
got a
it's
question?
just a question.
Okay. Go ahead.
So since we are the lead on this,
Oh, we're not the lead on the WEAG grant.
Just to clarify, 7.4 is for the sub-agreement with Petaluma, Sonoma County.
Oh,
and the
gotcha.
trash.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry.
so
thought
we
you
are
were-
the lead on 7.4. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that, then there's a certain amount. What is it? Is it the $225,000 that we are paid for being the lead? Is that true? Is the city get paid for that being the lead? No.
No.
Okay.
The city would get a certain amount, like more in grant funds for grant
Right.
administration, just a little bit. We also share that responsibility with the city of Petaluma. So no, we don't necessarily get paid for being the lead. It's just kind of one of those things where the city, at the time of the application, the city of Sonoma had the time and bandwidth to submit the application and kind of package it for this opportunity. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented?
I move approval.
Second? Anyone?
Any public comment?
Oh, public comment, yes, on the consent calendar. Seeing none. Mr. Wellen?
A second.
Oh, you second. Oh. All right, roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Farrar Rivas,
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Wellender,
Yes.
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Gurney.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
All right, there are no public hearings this evening, but we will move to the regular calendar. And item 9.1, appointment of youth members to Group A commissions. Ms. Barr.
Thank you. So, we're just showing good. As part of this item tonight, you'll be asked to consider making appointments to some of your Group A commissions. These are the ones that are your Cultural and Fine Arts Commission, the Design Review and Historic Preservation, Parks and Rec and Open Space, Traffic Safety, and the Climate Action Committee. Youth members serve 2-year terms, and their terms begin in October and end 2 years later on September 30th. So going forward, we have, clicker's faster than me tonight. The first one, and we can take these one at a time as we've done with the others in the past. The Cultural and Fine Arts Commission, it's 1 youth member. Applications were received from 3 individuals, and they're Margaret Maggie Brown, Alina Castro, Vincenzo Mansfield. And it should be noted that Alina Castro also expressed interest in the Climate Action Commission as a second choice of commissions, and Vincenzo Mansfield expressed interest in Traffic Safety Committee. So if you would like to go through them individually, make the appointments as you go, or would you like to consider all of them and then go back?
Well, why don't we consider all of them, and then I have a proposal, I think. Go ahead.
Okay. So next we have the Design Review and Historic Preservation. We received 1 application from Mikey Wangbickler, and he also expressed interest in the Climate Action Commission as a second commission. Moving to the pros, we received 1 application from Jared Mellinger. Mr. Mellinger was the current appointee to the pros, and he did ask to be reappointed. So let's see. Then we have the Traffic Safety Committee. We didn't receive any as a first choice applications as a first choice for the traffic safety, but we did receive the gentleman, Mr. Mansfield, he named this as his second choice. And then last but not least, the Climate Action Commission. Again, we had the 2 individuals who expressed interest as their second choice for this commission. So if you have any questions, be happy to answer them, or we can proceed.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to jump out here with a proposal, because I went through all the applications, and it seemed to me that they were all appropriate candidates, and I was able to identify all 5 of them with a commission of not their first choice necessarily, but second or third choice, if that was the case. So I would like to suggest Brown for the CFA. Is that right? Yes. Castro for Climate Action, Mellinger for pros, Mansfield for Traffic Safety, and Wangbickler, is it, for Design Review?
Yep. That's what I was going to propose. Yep. Perfect.
Second.
Public comment? Seeing none. Okay. So we have motion, second, and we have a roll call.
Vice Mayor Farrar Rivas,
Yes, and I would say I've vetted 3 of them, and I got really great information about all 3 that I vetted. So I think we have a good, of the 3, I think they all looked really good, but so we have a really good group of students here.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Wellender,
Yes.
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Gurney?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
That's great.
All right, moving on to 9.2, presentation regarding the City of Sonoma's approach to repair of existing sidewalks and construction of new sidewalks. Mr. Berger.
Yeah,
Or
good
somebody
evening,
else.
Mayor Gurney and council members. Thank you for hearing this item tonight. Tom Vonnegut, our interim consultant project manager, is here tonight to present. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Tom.
Thank you very much, and good evening, Mayor Gurney and members of the council. As Mike said, my name is Tom Vonnegut. I'm here to pinch hit and help your staff out with some projects. First question, this will do the magic that I need it to do. Excellent. Okay, I'd like to talk to you briefly about sidewalks, highlight some key points made in the staff report that I know you read, review staff's recommendations for changes and hopefully what you agree are improvements to the processes that we'll talk about, and then at the end answer any questions you may have or get alternate direction if you're inclined to do so. So with that, as mentioned, your city's approach to sidewalks is pretty typical of other cities throughout the state where you have two programs to deal with sidewalks, those that already exist. And so there are triggers for certain parties to make repairs if repairs are warranted for either trip hazards, which we'll talk about, or other defects that may be existing in those sidewalks to get them up to a compliant condition, and then to construct new sidewalks where they currently don't exist, or and to improve connectivity in your sidewalk system. In terms of the legal basis, the Streets and Highways Code in California is the legal underpinning that impacts just about all cities in California. And like many, many, many other cities, your city has adopted a municipal code section, as we mentioned, to make that enforceable and place liability and responsibility on the property owners to do that, consistent with state law. And then you also have a council-adopted trip hazard policy that provides a little bit more detail in the implementation and administration of that program. Really, the whole idea of sidewalk repair, as we mentioned, it's intended to repair defects and reduce liability exposure and really improve safety of the public pedestrians who are using the sidewalks, so they don't get injured when there's a defect or a deflection that would cause them to trip and fall and get hurt. Trip hazards have a certain definition, and that means any vertical separation over a 1/4 inch between two panels is actually defined as a trip hazard. Horizontal gaps greater than 3/4 inch. Defects are if you have a deep hole that someone might get a shoe or something caught in, or other issues that would cause, for example, a very extreme slope in a sidewalk. Think of a extremely uplifted panel from a tree root as a common issue. And so, as I mentioned, the property owner is responsible under your municipal code and state law. However, your city does offer assistance to help defray the cost to those owners, reduce the burden, and so up to 50% or $1,000 to help. And then also the city, unlike many others, you are taking on a lot of those smaller trip hazard repairs already. And you've seen reports come through your council meeting from time to time to approve contractors. So if it's an 1 3/4 or less than that, the city will already go ahead and do that. The property owner doesn't have to do anything. It's those larger ones that there's a process to notify the property owner that says, hey, we kindly ask you to repair this per state law. So that is the repair program. How it looks like, oh, I had an animation, I didn't know that. Let's just get through this all here. So a trip hazard's identified typically by the city staff making an inspection, but also we could be informed by the public and a complaint or just someone letting us know there's an issue. And as I mentioned, under 1.75 inches, the city will go endeavor to get it done. And the city does periodically work through, at least once a year, you could expect to see a contract come through and the contractor will go work on many locations. If it's greater than that, there is a process required by state law to notify the property owner, give them some information, and let them know that they have to do it, but that there is a program to help with the cost. So some issues, just considerations that come up in the implementation of this program. First and foremost, owners typically / almost always are surprised that it's their responsibility to maintain the sidewalk. I don't recall many instances where they jump up for joy to say, thank you so much for letting me know that I have to make this repair. So we'll talk about how we can try and, educate property owners a little bit more. The cost-sharing program that you have had in place for a while is not often used, and so we have some suggestions again on how to help property owners avail themselves of that if they want. Tree root conflicts are a big issue, and really the most common issue on why you have and why we have and other cities have vertical deflections in the sidewalk. It's not unusual for a tree root over time to get big. It expands that, the sidewalk cracks or sections become separated. And so what that requires then is the advice of an expert, a certified arborist, to let staff know, can we shave or get rid of that tree root so that we can effect a sidewalk repair without affecting the health of what is typically an otherwise healthy tree. If the report comes back and says, yes, you can, great, we do the repair and everyone moves on. If not, then we have to start thinking about other things to do to get a compliant sidewalk repair in there. It could mean rerouting the sidewalk. If there is available right-of-way, it might get moved a little bit further back from the street to go around the tree. Perhaps doing a bulb out. Not long ago, you'll recall your council implemented a policy to allow some alternative sidewalk materials. That might be an option to put something more flexible in there to save the tree and get a more gradual slope. But at the end of the day, if all of that fails, despite best efforts, tie goes to the runner. You have to put in a sidewalk and remove the tree because you can't now knowingly leave a defect. It's a liability issue. And you can, even though there are mature trees and you can replace trees. You can even think about doing 2, 3 for 1, whatnot. But what we do endeavor, because we all recognize trees are important, is to find a way to put a sidewalk and save the tree if possible. And as I mentioned, ADA rules, we have to comply with ADA. It's not an optional task. Also, we, like many cities, have been using a 30-day repair timeline when that notice goes out to the owner. But really, when you think about it, that's pretty short for an owner who now has just been hit with out of the blue with this to find a licensed contractor, have that contractor obtain a permit, effect the repair, and do everything they need to. And we have suggestions on, again, how to make that a little bit more customer friendly for your constituents. Moving on to new sidewalks. This program has been in place for quite a while, as mentioned in your staff report, since the early mid-'70s. It's also codified in your municipal code. And basically what this does, if you don't have sidewalk and someone's coming in with a building permit of a certain valuation, there will be an automatic requirement to install sidewalk unless some exceptions are triggered. The code does allow the Planning Commission to consider and issue a variance after it hears evidence, that it might decide perhaps new sidewalk is not warranted. And the city manager does have the ability, but not the obligation, to enter into what we call a deferred improvement agreement, or DIA, so that an applicant can go build their project and the new sidewalk comes in at some time in the future to be determined. And we'll talk about that. And then for a couple of years, you've also had a cost-sharing policy at the discretion of the city manager to, again, if there's, for example, a frontage that has an unusually large frontage, this sidewalk is going to be pretty expensive compared to the project that is the subject of the building permit. The city and the manager has the ability, subject to available budget funds, to offer some cost-sharing assistance because, again, the theory is this is a public amenity and benefit, and you're trying to take some of that burden, but not all of it, off of that applicant to get the new sidewalk in. Now, I'll mention, and it's in the staff report, the trigger in the municipal code is $50,000. So you come in with one permit or any combination of permits in any 2-year period. If the valuation exceeds $50,000, these triggers go into effect. But the longstanding practice, and it predates staff here, is really a little bit more of a sliding scale. It's $50,000 to $250,000 that really makes the first trigger, and it's only to make a repair on existing sidewalk. And you then have to get over $250,000 before new sidewalk becomes required. Tried to go back into the legislative history to find where that came to be. It's just been the practice, and we can only presume that, again, what we do hear from applicants often is, wow, I have to spend X amount on this new sidewalk, and all I'm doing is a small kitchen remodel. This doesn't seem out of balance, or this does seem out of balance, and so there was probably a provision to try and bring that a little bit more into line, the burden versus the cost of the permit. And we'll talk about what your desire is to do that. We do have recommendations. And again, let's just speed through. This looks simpler. It's basically the threshold is triggered, and 50,000 here again is what your code says. But again, as I mentioned, 50 to 250,000. Someone has to repair defects. Only over 250,000 are they required to install new sidewalk if it doesn't exist. Just a couple issues here is the code is hardwired. Right now it has a $50,000 number. It's not indexed for inflation. So over time, if that doesn't change, it effectively starts capturing more people into the process. Now, some city councils, that's intentional because over time, they essentially want to tighten the screws down because they want to get more sidewalk. Others want to maintain, going forward, some semblance of a balance of burden to, not overly burden property owners or applicants, but still work systematically to reduce gaps in your sidewalk. And so, but again, right now there's no trigger. We will be recommending that you consider putting a CPI trigger, again, just to help keep the valuation a little bit on pace with inflation. And then I mentioned deferred improvement agreements. These don't happen often. Tracking and administration is an issue, although staff is quite capable. We can record these, track them, but it does take work. Really, the bigger issue is the nasty surprise that comes down the road. What the deferred improvement agreement does says whoever built the improvement, you're off the hook for a while until the city tells you, now's the time to do this, and there could be a lot of reasons why we wait. But things change. The agreement gets recorded against the property. 2 years go by, property may sell. This is arguably not something that's disclosable. It really just ends up in a title report as an encumbrance on the property. Not unusual for a prospective buyer to miss that and in a title report to say, oh my gosh, there's an agreement here. I could be responsible for new sidewalk. Properties get landscaped, things just change, and then a notice comes, and they've become accustomed to how the property looks, how it's landscaped. There may be stuff in the way. They just didn't know, and so that's really not terribly great customer service either. It's a nasty surprise. But more importantly, again, it's a policy decision. When someone is spending money on a building permit, do you want to insist that that's the time you get your sidewalk? Sometimes we hear in implementation of that, the sidewalk to nowhere argument. Well, boy, that's going to be ugly. I have a frontage here with a sidewalk. I have other frontages, they don't. That's why you would sometimes want to wait until they all develop with these agreements and then build it all at once. Other councils take the approach, we want to get sidewalk when we get it. Things happen over time. The next property may redevelop, who knows, but the best time is when everyone's upfront and aware of that requirement. For now, all we're recommending to you is that this deferred improvement agreement is pretty much the status quo approach. It's really intended to be the exception, not the rule, with the city manager discretion for unusual situations. Otherwise, we try and get the sidewalk built concurrently with whatever building permit is making that requirement happen. So let's talk about some improvements that staff is suggesting. So we mentioned the surprise that property owners have that they are responsible for the sidewalk, even though we do have information on the city's website. So what we want to do is develop additional informational material. And so along with the required notice that goes out, which is a little bit of dry and has some code requirements and legalese, it's not amazing. It's put together a nicer, more straightforward, easy to digest and understand brochure that accompanies that with some questions and really highlight the fact of not only the why, but here are resources to help you, the property owner, and again, encourage and incentivize them to want to do this. Similarly, the planning, really the building division, they have multiple fact sheets on different types of permits, and we want to develop one on this to, again, really highlight for applicants going in that if you're going to do a project and you're starting to get to this valuation, that you know up front and can start incorporating into your plans the sidewalk, or that you're at least informed of the option. We do have information on our website. We think we can improve that to make it more prominent, easy to find. And then finally, we want to continue or do additional outreach with our resident expert, our PIO, to consider other ways she may recommend for us to get the word out either on an ongoing or periodic basis. We think that'll go a long way to reduce the surprise. I mentioned the 30-day period. We think 90 days is more realistic for a contractor, or excuse me, a homeowner or property owner to have time to get a contractor to come out, provide them estimates, go through the permit process and get the submittals and effect a repair. We don't want it to be a source of stress. We just want to reduce the trip hazard and take care of the safety issue. We also want to, as I mentioned, incentivize property owners to want to do the work themselves so that these things don't pile up for city staff to have to track, organize, and get a contractor. And so a couple other ways we've talked about internally is, again, another thing you can do, it's very common in cities, if you come in as a homeowner or property owner with a contractor and request an encroachment permit, which is required to work in the right-of-way, we need that for insurance and liability, let's just waive the permit fee. It's one small little thing we can do just to, again, another charge that goes away because you're coming to make an improvement. Likewise, working with Community Development Department, we think there's a way, if one of those comes in, it's an encroachment permit and it's specifically for a sidewalk repair, that should go up in the queue. Typically, those don't require a lot of review. We just make sure they're following standards, that the contractor's licensed. Let's get those permits in and out so that the repair can happen, instead of just first in, first out as other, in line with other permits. And then finally, if in fact, after all that, the homeowner doesn't affect the repair and it falls to the city, instead of just putting the repair costs on, what it costs our contractor to do, and you've seen those reports come through, then the homeowner needs to pay the full freight. And they need to know that, hey, it'll be probably cheaper if you get a contractor yourself. You don't have to get prevailing wage and comply with that, but we do. That's already 25 to 30% higher cost. We have our admin charges, all the administration, so it's more. And that would go in the informational brochure, so they hopefully could be steered into saying, I can just find somebody, he's licensed, I know he's got a good price, and hey, I'll get $1,000 from the city as well. So that's what we recommend to make much more explicit. I talked about the trigger. It is our recommendation that we update the code and come back to you and simply put a CPI adjustment. And we can write it in such a way that going forward, after the initial code change, it could be done by resolution with the fee schedules that you annually approve. And what we recommend is, it seems the sliding scale has been working pretty well, and we would like to codify that too in the Muni Code so that we kind of course correct and at least make the code match what the current practice has been, to say between 50,000 and 250, if you come in with these combination of permits, you just are obligated to repair any defects that exist. Over 250,000 is when you will be required now to construct new sidewalk, and we'll get your feedback on that, but that's what we have been doing. And I talked about the deferred improvement agreements, again, just to affirm that really should be an exception, not the rule. That is the way it's happening, and it would just be good to get that confirmation from you. So with that, I'm happy, and Mike is, to answer any questions you have on those changes or any other thoughts you have about things you'd like us to consider. Then we will take that back and at some point come back to you with a formal report and formal code and or policy changes for your final consideration before those would become effective. And I'm done. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, thanks, Tom. Any questions right now from the council? Patricia Farias.
Quick one. If you do over 250,000, even if you're let's say you have a sidewalk in front of your house and it's in fine condition, you don't have to put a new one in.
That's correct.
Because it reads like no matter what, you have to put a new sidewalk in.
Sorry, and I should be clear. So existing sidewalk there, it's in great conditions, no problems. You don't have to do anything. It's only if there is a defect subject to an inspection or something. But no, if it's in good shape, you're good.
Ms. Lowe?
On the sidewalk repair overview slide, there's this color coding and phases.
Let's see.
I don't know really what
I
it
see.
means.
Okay. Well, that was just like my visual cue. So this is a map that staff uses and I think shows up in reports occasionally when the staff comes to you with contractors. In its slide, I think 3 in the presentation.
Yeah, slide 3.
So what we're talking about is that one right there.
Yeah.
And so this was a phasing map. So over the years, the color coding just indicated where staff was going to focus their inspection efforts. So it's a little, you can kind of see it in the top left, there's sort of a yellow area.
Yeah.
It says, okay, in this fiscal year, we're going to inspect public sidewalks in that area.
But what fiscal, it does, where's the year part?
It's on it's on the graphic, and we have that in reports. I just don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
The point is there is an annual program that your staff undertakes to find defects and repair them, and it goes, instead of just a hodgepodge anywhere over the city, it is trying to be systematic and work on parts of the city at a time.
Right, but without knowing, I don't know if we're at orange or green, if I look at this.
This is going. This is like a graphic going past in time. We've gone through. And this was a plan laid out years ago. You've gone through most of the city, actually, and I don't know if, Mike, you can fill
Yeah,
in where
we've
we
gone
are.
through 100% of the graph one time. We finished right before I got here, and we actually implemented precision concrete to come out and do the first phase for the second round, which was around the plaza, down Broadway, and down Napa Street. We didn't do the full red section that's indicated for the plaza section, which is in red. But we started the main core of downtown and then stopped a couple blocks up Napa Street.
Okay, thank you.
With regards to the map, I noticed that the Lorcan neighborhood is not on the inspection map.
The map is old.
Okay.
It was probably implemented around 2018.
Yeah.
And it'll get updated prior to, and as part of the sidewalk program update.
Right. Mr. Ding, did you have a question?
Yes. I saw that the city would like to provide a 50% that is a grant, that is the aid, that means up to the $1,000, the project, right?
Up to 1,000, correct.
So that means, and each project, the maximum, the city will provide it at $500. Is that right?
No, the contribution would actually be up to 1,000. That's the cap. So
Okay.
a property owner could get up to $1,000 for their particular repair, depending on the cost. And it's also subject to budget availability. You do budget a certain amount of sidewalk funds each year. If we had a major influx, you wouldn't. But right now, that number means a single property owner could get up to $1,000 for their repair.
Okay. Makes sense. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're going to open this up to the public for the moment, and I think somebody wants to speak to this.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for letting me speak, and I want to thank the members of the staff who've come by to take a look at my tree. And Councilman Ding, thank you for bringing the chair over at my request, which has been removed because I had polio as a kid and my legs give out. So I hope I make this. Am I limited to 2 minutes? That took too long.
Please continue. I have to figure out how to press a button here.
Oh, okay, thank you. So this is my fourth application to remove this tree. The first one I made on July 3rd of 2012. Different times I was denied by the tree committee the first 3 times to remove the tree. Some of you know that I've chaired both the Cultural and Fine Arts Commission and the Community Services Commission, which is the older name of that commission, which oversees the tree committee. This time, when I went in to apply, I was asked to pay $250 just to apply to remove the tree. I paid that. I was told to get an arborist to evaluate the situation, and that after that person evaluated, they would have the city arborist take a look. So I went online and I found 3 Sonoma Valley certified arborists. The first 2 said they didn't want to work with the city of Sonoma. The third one was John Meserve, who I found when I came to the tree committee meeting was the city arborist. And now that he is being paid by the city, I just got a bill from him a couple of weeks ago for what he did for me before he was being paid by the city. So in all of this period, I did get estimates for what it would cost to remove the tree and do all the cement and gutter and asphalt and all of that. And my right leg is not working. So the total, I just added up with the city manager today, reaches about $19,000 to remove my tree.
Kathleen, we've got a chair here for you. Maybe you could.
Great. Thank you for bringing it back.
Yeah.
Just come on. Oh, okay. So, anyway, where was I? Yeah, so $19,000, that's for Dave Church to remove the tree, Ron Church to do the cement, and an asphalt guy to do the asphalt. Mike Berger came by once too and suggested some ways that the city might be able to help. It just seems that, and also when I first applied, Wendy Atkins' letter to me referred to it as a public right-of-way, which does not sound like my private property. The city actually made us, they chose the tree, planted the tree, and made us pay the city $25 to plant it. Through all of these 12 years, it's gotten worse and worse. People did come by. I was told after one of my presentations that they would do the shaving or whatever you call it between the sections of sidewalk. They did that. They decided it was not bad enough to take the tree out, so they did that. They once came and crowned the tree, I think it's called, which was supposed to somehow control the root development. I'm not sure how. And so it got worse and worse. And while it's definitely the best tree on the block, it's also the worst tree on the block. And it's a liquid amber, as had been planted by the city everywhere. There was no developer making a decision. It was the city of Sonoma who made the decision. And so now I'm in the position of wondering if real estate agents should tell people that if they buy a house in the city of Sonoma where there's a tree planted by the city of Sonoma, if they have to be ready to put out at least $20,000 to get it removed when it's necessary. So, I know this affects a whole lot of people. My situation is an exceptional bad sidewalk, and something has to be done. I would like some guidance other than, I know the $1,000, up to $1,000 grant or whatever you call it, is the same amount, I think, as it was decades ago when I was chair of the commission. It has not gone up, certainly not in pace with inflation. So there has to be, I think, some improvement in the process, whether you charge the applicant $250 to apply, have the same person inspect the property twice. There are all sorts of things, and help more with the costs.
Okay. And that's kind of what this whole conversation is
Yes.
all about tonight.
Thank
So thank you very much for your input. We've heard, and I think if you stick around, you'll hear more in terms of what direction
I'll
we want to
stick
move
around
in.
not only tonight, but for a long time.
There you go.
Been
All
here
right.
50 years, so,
All
and in this house 40 years.
All right.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Mayor. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Okay. Anybody else wish to discuss this item with the public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council. Mr. Wellender, it looks like you'd like to jump on this.
Oh, I have a few thoughts. I think we have, as it has been explained, about 3 different scenarios. One is the ability to cut and shave, which the city has been very proactive in doing, and I applaud the city for doing that. And the example that was given by Kathleen was something that, in my humble opinion, the city is culpable for. And what I mean by that is that I believe it was an influence in the city of Sonoma that wanted all the liquid amber trees planted throughout because they were deemed the best tree ever, and that was by the former city councilman Robert Kennard. And unfortunately, he was a great horticulturalist in many respects, but in this particular case, he blew it big time. So it troubles me to think that, well, backtrack. I also agree with Kathleen's comment that says that realtors should be obligated to disclose responsibilities of a homeowner. This also includes the responsibility of, oh, by the way, you're buying a historic house. You may wish to talk to the city as far as what implications there may be regarding your remodeling. I actually am familiar with this tree. I went by it, I assessed it. I was disappointed with what I saw. But again, this is an example of what I call an opportunity for creative problem solving. And this may not be practical, but something that was considered on another project was the possibility of creating a realignment of the sidewalk. And that realignment would actually encroach into what currently is private property, which would require a drawing. But in essence, it reflects recognition of the value of the best and worst tree in the block, and may give the opportunity to keep that tree. And there is another example of what I call creative thinking. If you've been on MacArthur and you're walking from MacArthur Place after you've had your coffee and you're going to go up and watch a soccer game at Presswood School, on the south side there's a Monterey, I want to say it's a Monterey cypress, a huge tree that's right on the curb, that people were very creative, and I'd love to see the site plan where the property line or the setback is identified, but it literally bowls way in, and it was a very encouraging example of people valuing trees and saying, look, I want to figure out how we can do it. And that's the case where it does have to become a kind of a partnership or an understanding with the city, because there are some formalities in creating a legal document that adjusts the setback or the property line. And sometimes the owner may not wish to do that. But again, we hear so much about climate change. We hear so much about the value of keeping trees. Well, it's easy to cut trees down, but I would really like to see it be a more thoughtful process on how have we exhausted the options? Have we been able to think through this? And yes, it could be a 3-to-1, but I would, Tom, I would argue that I may not be alive by the time those three could be added up to be equal to the one that is being cut down. So, again, I would love to see us get into some sort of collaborative effort. The problem with $1,000 right now, and I haven't gotten current costs, but I'm sure somebody correct me, but concrete work in this city is incredibly expensive, even with prevailing wage or not prevailing wage. And, $1,000 at $25 a square foot will get you about 40 square feet, which would be a 4-foot sidewalk, 10-foot long. And I would say most of our parcels are 50-foot wide. That'd be pretty standard for a lot of areas. So the other problem I have with this is that, and it's not our fault, too bad, the city is just the messenger, but I get very frustrated with the American Disability Acts keeps changing the regulations. So now with the picture that you've shown on page 1 in terms of sidewalk approach, in terms of the construct new sidewalk, it's a little deceiving, because in reality that driveway apron invariably does not meet the current ADA standard, and that will have to be replaced as well. So I wish I had a good answer other than to say that either A, the owner needs to bear the entire cost, or B, the city needs to absorb it. I just would love to see a kind of a working spirit that says, I recognize the sins of the past, and let's work together to figure out how we can best move it forward. So those are my comments. Let me see if I have any more actual questions. and this is kind of an adjunct comment or sidebar, but I think going forward, we really need to revisit our street tree policy. We need to revisit how we plant a street tree. We need to, in terms of that brochure, really speak to the owner on how to maintain a tree, because I would advocate that some of the problems, which could have been the one on 4th Street, was an example where the compacted base rock. So, anyway.
May I answer that? The city put 2 plastic pipes 3 feet down when they ran it into the ground. Told me to water through those. I was the only person who did on the block.
All right.
Well,
Not to save the tree.
anyway, so there are my comments, and I'll let you go back because John's getting impatient. I've seen that look before.
Well, I'm sorry I went to you first. But anyway, so we're here to actually give staff direction in terms of developing a policy around this. And I think there are actually a number of recommendations, and maybe we could do similar with what we did with the general plan, is pull up the recommendations and go through those page by page. And then if somebody has other comments they want to interject as we go through these, please feel free. So here's our first page of recommendations. Anybody have any comments for these?
I have no general comments because I went to different neighborhood. They have the similar issue starting from 3 or 4 years ago. And education is very important. They really don't know what's going on. And of course, being the owner, want to shift their responsibility to the city. But sometimes when I saw that, the road condition is really, really dangerous. The owners putting the red flag around that area and protecting the children from running the bicycle over there. So I always thinking if any accident, the city will take some responsibility. Or I would like any policy if we want to make, maybe talk with a different community or representative, ask a neighbor and join us and see what they think and how we can, because different area, they have a different situation and also different family background, that they have different needs. If we just copy paste from other cities and a policy to here, maybe will not work very well. Yeah, we should customize and made and formed here. That is my general comments. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments on this particular page? Because I think that these all look like reasonable proposals in terms of trying to correct this process. I think we can move to the next page, I hear the Vice Mayor saying. Okay. I think
This seems to be quite reasonable as well, considering how long it takes to get things done.
that's,
I would even say, I just changed some kitchen cabinets and it was half a year. I have to tell you, because just stuff happens, they get called, there was another emergency, I had to go there. I would say 90 days with, just kind of over-the-counter extensions of some kind, because 90 days is like nothing, and sometimes you don't get them scheduled for 90 days, and then something happens. Anyway, I just think as much, I know every minute that goes by you're more liable, I get that, but just my own personal experience, if I could get somebody to come in and have anything done in 90 days, it would be a miracle.
Maybe 90 days with an extension of another 90 days.
I think the city
Yeah,
attorney.
I just wanted to chime in, basically what Councilmember Lowe said, which is that people are getting this notice because they have a sidewalk that's in disrepair and is a potential hazard, and that we know is a hazard. So at that point, we're on notice. and the property owner is on notice, and both the property owner and the city can be liable for injuries. So the longer we wait, the more the risk is of an injury. And these are essentially nuisance type abatements, and so there is always discretion with the staff in terms of how much time, but I think this is what we're putting in the notice, if I'm correct, to
Correct,
the property
yeah.
owner. That's
I
what I'm
get that, but my guess is there's been at least 90 days before you even got the notice that it was like in this condition, if not a year or so. So I'm just saying, sometimes it's very hard to get workers to come and be on time and get the project finished when you think you can. It just, you know, there should be no fault, kind of like an extension if you need it.
Mr. Mayor, if I could
Yes.
offer a suggestion
Please.
for your council's consideration, let staff, I hear what the issue is, and also the concern expressed by the city attorney. We'll work on an idea, one option, but we'll come back to you with all the other changes that you direct. And one possibility could be that the notice requires 90 days, but if an owner finds that he or she needs more time and they are actively working on it, that the staff would have discretion to offer up some additional time as long as there is a demonstrative process. So we'll look to see if
got
we
it.
can put
Yes.
words to that.
Okay,
Sound okay?
yeah.
All right.
Next slide. Any comments? Seeing none?
What I'll offer you here is that, again, you're going to see this. We'll provide to you, some idea of if we're going to waive encroachment permit fees, what is our guesstimate of, depending on how many you expect? What kind of revenue would you be giving up? I would argue it's probably not substantial, but you should have that number when you're making your final decision. And also what we can do as staff in the building division to make sure that we're still moving permits through, but getting these through. And you'll have that background when we come back for some detailed consideration.
Anybody opposed to that?
I'm just curious, what would you consider an expedited review encroachment permit timeline?
I may need to have my public works or community development staff, because I just don't have a feel for the current timeline.
A fast review would be 1 to 2 weeks, and if it gets drug on for extenuating circumstances, I don't see why it couldn't be done in 30 days.
Mr. Wellender, may we move on?
Sure.
Next slide. Any comments?
I actually just have a question on this one. When you're saying increase the trigger amount annually per change in CPI, we're starting that now and going forward, not going to go back? and-
Correct. It's
okay,
a
just to
moving
be-
forward
Just
basis.
to be sure.
Okay, Patricia, you're pitching.
Mr. Wellender, anything?
No, thank you.
All right. Then we will move to the next slide. We'll move to the next slide. There we go.
I'm supposed to do it.
I do have a question, if I could.
You may.
Site-specific, 3rd Street East between Patton Street and Napa. You have an older section of town. You've got probably 17 houses, of which probably 3 might have a current sidewalk. And it's a slow residential area. And I understand the intent, wanting to have safe ADA passage, but in reality, I would suspect that the complete sidewalk creation in that one block will not take place for the foreseeable future, and I'm being kind. Is there any consideration or options on that where you have an existing condition that even though you burn an owner to take out landscape, put in a new sidewalk, improve the existing driveway apron because it no longer meets ADA, is there any other options for that? Because the net result is that the individual that is charting a safe path of travel is going to be in the street, is going to go up the driveway apron, go down one lot, go down the improved apron, and then continue on the street. So that's, you might call it an anomaly, but I would suspect that there are a number of places around town. And then you have places like on, I think it's Oak Street, maybe between MacArthur and Chase, where that development was put in with no sidewalks, no pavement, just, I'm sorry? No.
That's third.
There's a portion of Oak that is exactly.
Yeah, so it goes from, anyway, my point is that there's an example that the city approved, didn't put any sidewalks in, and at that point in time, it was okay, and now we're elevating things back up and wanting to bring everything up to code, when historically some things were approved then.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm going back to this Third Street example of and I know that the deferment, when you say you're going to tag an individual's home ownership, and you're going to burn that, nobody wants that. So I'm just saying, is there any other options for a deferment that would be fair, that the homeowner would recognize that they are obligated should the additional pieces of the puzzle be able to be executed? And if not, then...
Well, Councilmember, we can certainly look into that, but the recording of the agreement on the property is the only way, I think, subject to further discussion with the city manager and city attorney on how we have an enforceable mechanism to make that trigger, even if it's not appropriate, if it's appropriate to wait till some point in the future, which I think I'm hearing, without something recorded against the property. I don't know really how that works off the top of my head. If we just have an agreement with the property owner and they sell and move away, we have nothing with the new property owner. So typically you would burden the property, and if that applicant who's doing that time didn't want to do that, then they would need to make the improvements. But then what we would do, pursuant to the policies that you have in place, is say, well, okay, perhaps the city can help you out. And remember, the sidewalk repair is the $1,000, but the new sidewalk construction is significantly more potential contributions subject to available budget that the city manager should. So that might be a way to do it. But I hear your comment. We'll make notes. We'll kind of meet and confer, and when we come back, see if there's something else that we could offer up, if that's okay.
Yeah, and just to add a little bit to that, each one of these deferred improvement agreements is each one's tricky and has significant circumstances sometimes associated. On 3rd Street, south of Napa, there's a bridge there. And you can't fit a sidewalk on that street until the bridge gets widened. So in these types of cases, it really takes a holistic look at the situation to really make a determination if a DIA is appropriate for this. And as Tom stated earlier, it's, I wouldn't say a last chance, a last resort, but we would like to try to get away from these unless there's a real reason and you have a real chance of getting continuity, complete continuity.
Again, another option could be when we come back that there, perhaps the code, we come back to, there might be limited certain circumstances that we can describe that just simply exempt someone for whatever reason. If there's just something right now that appears completely onerous, or there's literally a physical obstruction that it just couldn't be done until some other major capital project happens. So let us work on that, and then we'll see what we can come back to you with.
I'm coming up. All right, I'm not going to raise my hand again. So
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
it's okay. I was just being polite. No, I'm just kidding. So there's a couple of different things also to go along with this. We have identified there's a couple of streets that we've looked at together that would require complete stormwater improvements and a whole number of other improvements just to put the sidewalk in. We also have a map that's identified where sidewalk gaps currently exist. And in a lot of cases, maybe those gap areas where we have no sidewalk on either side of the street, there's a reason for that. And maybe those streets we need to identify in our circulation element that one side of the street needs to have the sidewalk and that the other side, just because of all the impediments, isn't really feasible to put a sidewalk in. So do want to say that we are wanting to put in policies around that in the circulation element in the general plan as well. And then last but not least, we do have areas of the city that have been identified as rural residential, and sidewalks are not required to be installed in those neighborhoods. And so just making sure that we get those all cleaned up as part of that circulation element as well.
Okay, is there another slide?
No, that's it, unless you have any other direction that we haven't already discussed.
Okay,
That's the last recommendation.
I actually do, but go ahead. No, go ahead.
So the only other thing that I think would be good to have in the policy is I do support, try to save the trees, and so that's, that there's a best efforts made to save trees before we're immediately saying that the tree has to go. So, and best efforts, I think is a broad enough, I don't know, that's up to you, David Rudiment, as to whether best efforts is, broad enough or if it's not good language, but.
All right, does anybody else have another comment before we conclude this item? The last thing I would like to say is that I think several of us up here ran on a principle of making government friendly again and helpful. And we hired a city manager whose philosophy is help people be successful. And I would like to just ask staff to work with Miss Hill and help her resolve that problem. I actually go by there multiple times a day and often think about that sidewalk. So if there, whatever we need to do, it sounds to me like she's a willing participant, which is unusual in itself. And I think we can work with her and hopefully get that resolved to make it an asset for the community again. So, thank you very much. You're welcome. All right. Thank you very much, Tom.
Great, thank you for the comments and direction.
Okay, item 9.3, introduce an ordinance establishing administrative remedies procedure for challenges to fees, charges, and assessments. Our city attorney.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mayor
Rubin.
Gurney and members of the City Council. Before you is a proposed ordinance that would impose an exhaustion requirement when the city is going to increase its rates or fees under the Constitution of California. So the exhaustion of administrative remedies, it's basically a doctrine that says before you can sue the city challenging our water rates, for example, you have to tell the city what your problem with our water rates is and give us the opportunity to determine whether or not we think the water rates need to be fixed or not. It promotes administrative efficiency, it reduces costs to the city to avoid litigation, and it also promotes judicial economy because it creates a record that a judge can then look at to determine whether or not the city has complied with the constitutional requirements when imposing new rates or charges or not. So this come about as a result of a California Supreme Court decision a few years ago that determined that the protest proceedings under Prop 218 is not an exhaustion requirement. And you don't actually need to protest in order to then sue the city based on the rates. So the legislature's cleaned this up. AB 2257 provides that when the city is going to impose new rates or fees under the Constitution, if it provides this particular procedure and it follows that procedure, then it can require someone to go through that procedure before they can sue the city, so they don't play gotcha with the city. So it's essentially laid out in statute what the requirements are. Most of them fit within the normal 45-day notice, providing notice of what the rate study or the engineer's report is going to look like. The main difference is that it now requires the city to respond in writing to the written objections. So that's a new requirement that we currently don't necessarily do. And if we adopt this ordinance and follow through with this procedure, rate making is going to start to look a little bit more like CEQA claims. If you guys on the Planning Commission, for example, you'll get a data dump of CEQA objections on the day of the hearing. You'll have to then review that material, continue the hearing so that you can then prepare comments and responses to that data dump, and then come back at a subsequent hearing to adopt the CEQA document, or in this case, adopt a rate study. So that's what is before you. Essentially, it will, as I said, it will prevent people from suing the city who haven't come to the city first and explained why they think our fees or rates are unconstitutional. And it really is focused on the constitutionality of rates and fees under Article 13D, which is Prop 218. And we've made it a little bit broader to apply to any fee that's not a tax under Article 13C. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions from the council? I see a couple of head. Mr. Ding, anything?
I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Very quick one. What is the timeline for the city to respond to the objections? I didn't see that in here.
There's no particular timeline.
Okay.
The people have to provide their comments by the end of the hearing.
Yeah.
And then, depending upon what we get, the ordinance allows us to continue the hearing. So we could just, under Prop 218, there's no limitation on how long we continue to the next regular meeting, for example, or we can continue it till the next day. It's really up to the city at that point, how much time it needs to review and comment on.
But we could vote on it and then respond to the. We
No,
have to respond in writing before we can.
Yes.
Before then, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So it will take a little longer, probably, unless we get all the comments before the agenda is posted and we're able to process those in a timely fashion.
Okay, seeing no other comments, do we have a motion?
Public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Public comment. I assumed an empty room would speak for itself. All right, now I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, motion second. Empty room. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Farrar Rivas,
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe. Aye. Councilmember Wellender,
Yes.
Councilmember Ding,
Aye.
Mayor Gurney.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
All right. Okay, item 9.4, resolution adopting the city's 2024 investment policy. Our finance director, Poppy.
Good evening, Mayor Gurney and the council. I'm here to talk about the investment policy for City of Sonoma. California Government Code encourages local entities to adopt an annual investment policies. While this is not required, it is the best practice as it promotes transparency and shares the fiduciary responsibility. I am not sure when was the last time the investment policy was last adopted, but this has come up as a audit item for internal control by the auditors, which flagged me to bring this policy in front of you today. The updated updated investment policy for fiscal year 24-25 adheres to the guideline from California Municipal Treasury Association, and it complies with the industry standards. The three main objective of the policy is as the old policy is safety of the principal. Our top priority is to protect our investment, liquidity, ensure we have enough cash liquid for our needs, and yield, maximize the highest return from the investment. The investment strategies on this policy allows for active management of cash to be invested for better yield and better return. It also includes safer investment categories such as U.S. Treasuries and government agencies' debt. The policy was discussed in Finance Committee meeting on September 17, 2014, and has been revised based on the committee's feedback. I would like to add that Optimized Investment Partners had supported staff to formulate this policy, and with that, I have Robert McCallick and David Bilby, along with myself, to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Okay. We have an investment policy in front of us. Is there any questions or comments about this? Is that a yes?
You mentioned about existing investment policy. Have you checked how long we?
So what from my research, the existing policy was adopted back in 2002 or 2003. So it's been a while since it has been updated, which is why, we're bringing this updated policy to the council.
Is it required, or you already see something we needed to update?
So it, because of the policy changes, it is recommended that we bring this to the council as one of the audit requirements. So, we're up to date with the California Municipal Treasury Association. Any guidelines that have updated, that has not been done. So since, at least I know, since 2019, so which is why I'm bringing this in front of you.
Okay. Yeah. Also, you mentioned about this policy is part of the audit procedure.
It is. Okay. It was one of the, so we just got done with the fiscal year 2021 audit, and it was one of the findings that we'd not taken, we've not adopted this policy that fiscal year. So I am being proactive and, bringing this for fiscal year 24-25. So we do not have this finding for fiscal year 24-25 audit.
Thank you.
I should point out that this policy was reviewed by the Finance Committee, and actually it looks really good. I've taken a look at the old and the new, so I thank you, and I expect that it'll be reviewed on an annual basis from here on out,
yes,
correct?
Yes, it will.
All right. Ms. Farrar-Rivas, did you have?
Yeah, and I think the only thing it's good for the council to know is what one of the changes was to be able to go to 5-year securities, so to be able to a slightly higher level of risk in the portfolio, but but looking at those being in very safe instruments, whether it's treasury bonds and you can look at the list of instruments. So it's still a very safe, conservative approach, but allows for us to collect more interest on the assets that we have.
Okay, any other comments? Is there a motion to adopt the revised policy?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call. Oh, wait a minute, public comment? Oof. Oh, any public comment? Seeing none? All right, roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Farrar-Rivas.
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe. Aye. Councilmember Wellender.
Yes.
Councilmember Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Gurney.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
All right, and item 9.5, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a professional service agreement with Optimized Investment Partners for an investment advisory services. And again, the Finance Committee did have the opportunity to actually have a presentation from Optimized and talk to city staff about this as well. So, Poppy.
So City of Sonoma has historically invested its surplus cash in LAIF account and in various banks, providing liquidity, and we did earn quite a modest interest last fiscal year. However, with the current higher investment rate, it is crucial to implement a multi-year laddering approach to maximize the return and support council goals of revenue stewardship. Over the past few years, staff has consulted with several California local entities, including the city of Cotati, to learn about their investment strategies and their experience with optimized investment partners. The feedback was very overwhelmingly positive, highlighting optimized investment partners' ability to provide comprehensive cash flow models and daily investment advice. Optimized Investment Partner estimates that city could generate additional $233,000 in investment revenue while ensuring the safety and liquidity of our funds. They presented their service to the Finance Committee, as the mayor mentioned, during the September 17th meeting, further emphasizing the benefits of long-term investment for revenue growth. And staff believes that Optimized Investment Partners represents proactive shift approach towards investment for long-term with a steady investment revenue, enhancing city's financial stability and supporting responsible revenue stewardship. With that, I have Optimized Investment Partners here to do a short presentation for you all and answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, welcome, Optimized people. Who would like to be the lead here?
I will get things started. I hope everybody can hear me okay. My name is Brittany Tran. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, perfect. Great. Great. So we are very excited to show you what Optimized Investment Partners, also known as OIP, can do for the city of Sonoma. In our presentation, we'll introduce our team and discuss a few key topics. First, we'll explain investment requirements set by the government code and your investment policy. Second, we'll talk about industry practices and what sets OIP apart. Third, we'll show you how our services can fit your needs, case studies that prove that in our initial portfolio analysis. And finally, we'll show you how we can help you. Feel free to ask questions along the way. So first, I'm going to introduce David Bilby, our president and CEO, and he will say a few words.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. We genuinely appreciate your time tonight. My name is David Bilby. I've been working in local government since 2005, and my last position in local government was Finance Director Treasurer for the City of Chula Vista. It was there I managed, among other duties, an investment portfolio of $400 million. And I determined that the industry was missing some key components in what investment advisors could do to optimize portfolio management, which was a little bit about what Propti was talking about, that cash flow modeling, understanding your operations, your capital improvement projects, grants, and working with you day in and day out to make sure that we're maximizing and optimizing your investment revenue while keeping your investments in very secure investments. We really are excited about sharing the rest of this presentation with you, and thank you so much for your time.
Hello, this is Robert, and thank you so much for giving us an opportunity to present tonight. As the COO of OIP, my primary responsibility is overseeing the day-to-day operations of the company, and my job is really just to ensure that we are providing a superior level of service to all of our clients. I look forward to getting to know you a little bit better and having a great opportunity to tell you about our services. So thanks again. I'll hand it back over to Brittany.
Thank you so much. Again, I'm Brittany, Contract Marketing Director. In marketing, I develop strategies to promote OIP services and conduct market research to find the municipalities where we can help optimize their investments the most. So now we'll review public agency investment requirements. The California Government Code has specific rules where we're all supposed to follow as fiduciaries, like the prudent person standard, meaning we must look out for the public dollar first and foremost. OIP must put your interest before our own. It's really about the safety of principle. We're here to just add a layer of expertise to what you've been doing. So this slide covers permitted investments. I won't go into detail through each of these types of investments, but the biggest question that boards and councils usually have for us is how do we make sure our money is safe? For new clients, we don't recommend going out on the risk spectrum at all. We focus on investments that are fully backed by the faith of the federal government, that have implied backing by the faith of the federal government, are covered by FDIC insurance, or that are fully collateralized like Waive. The yeses listed here are what we recommend to utilize since these have the lowest level of risk. This next slide has the no's. These are fully authorized under the current government code. However, you are allowed to invest in all of these options, but ultimately it's up to you on how risky you want to get with your portfolio. We don't recommend taking that additional risk at this point in time. If you do want to explore other allowable investment options, we can discuss these more in detail in the future. So this slide identifies the two most common investment management approaches and our approach, the OIP Advantage. The passive approach utilizes a combination of investment pools and checking accounts. While this emphasizes liquidity, this approach exposes the portfolio to a high degree of interest rate risk. It provides no budgetary certainty and lacks long-term locked-in investment revenue. The active approach invests in a diverse group of investments over a 5-year period. OIP has created a new industry best practice, leveraging a customized cash flow modeling approach and cash management. What we do takes more work, but the results are optimized while improving the level of safety. In short, we looked at the industry and asked ourselves, how can we do this better? So I mentioned that one of the key aspects to our strategy is custom cash flow modeling. This slide demonstrates the benefits of OIP's active cash management strategy versus the industry standard. The blue line on the graph outlines the city of tomorrow's historical cash flow. Most advisors will ask, how much would you like to invest? To which the city, not the hired expert, will say the minimum amount that they're most comfortable with. In this case, the low point in the cash flow data, the red line on the graph, is the typical amount that a competitor would select for the active investment portfolio. The distance between the red line and the blue line is the OIP advantage. By utilizing the $35 million in uninvested money, OIP can create $1.5 million in additional investment revenue. The benefit for those other investment advisors is that they don't need to actively engage with you or your portfolio or monitor your cash flows on a monthly basis. We believe that cash flow monitoring is a critical component of having a truly optimized portfolio. So how does OIP project your future cash flows? We collect your historical data, which allows us to make educational inferences on your city's seasonal needs, while budgets, CIP programming, and current statements give us an idea of where your needs are going. We take a combination of the historical data and projected expenses and import it into our cash flow model system, which creates the projected cash flow you see here. And that is what we use to guide our investment strategy. This means that we optimize your money and minimize uninvested funds, which can make a huge difference in your overall returns. We believe that how much you keep invested is more important than what you invest in, all while reducing the risk and improving the safety of your portfolio. Yes, it's more work, but it's extremely worth it. Your customized investment strategy will have both a short-term and long-term component. We believe we will match maturities in cash movement based on the cash needs of your agency. We will also ensure that you always have a liquidity buffer to account for the unexpected or unplanned expenditures. This is a critical aspect of our services. Would you like me to expand on anything?
I see no questions at this point.
Perfect, thank you. I'm going to pass the next few slides to Rob.
Great. Thank you, Brittany. So at this point, I just want to show you what market rates of return look like as of today for a very conservative portfolio. We have provided you with a snapshot of U.S. Treasuries in various durations and their respective returns. Bottom line, regardless of the rate environment that we will be experiencing at any point in time, we will be analyzing your data to ensure that we have the most effective short-term and long-term investment strategy in place for your city. And we have a snapshot here just kind of showing what the portfolio looked like when we first started partnering with Propty. The city has about $38.6 million and where the funds were at that point in time. Next slide. We just want to show you where we believe we can add some value by building out both a long-term and short-term portfolio size. So based on a cash balance of about $38 million, we believe it would be appropriate to have about $26 million in a long-term portfolio. That's anything from 1 year to 5 years out. It doesn't mean the entire 26 million would be invested out a full 5 years, but they'd be broken out in buckets. And that long-term yield would be right around 4% based on current market rates. The estimated short-term portfolio size would be right around $11 million. And that short-term yield would be right around 4.75%. We'd also recommend keeping about $1 million in checking for your day-to-day operation. And we predict the estimated annual revenue projection will be around $1.5 million. At this point in time, I'm going to hand it back over to Brittany.
Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions so far?
I see none.
Great, thank you. So now we'll discuss the ways that OIP will support you. As I briefly covered, OIP provides investment advisory expertise of government funds. We have the expertise of our CEO, who has worked in local government for 20 years and understands how you operate and what your typical needs are. We identify opportunities that keep your portfolio optimized in an ever-changing investment market. We help ensure that you have the funds available when needed and can optimize any idle cash along the way. All of this comes with our best and most important feature, our commitment to high quality service and dedicated attention. We don't do 800 numbers. Who you see in this presentation is who's going to answer the phone when you need us. I'd like to leave you with some final thoughts. As you know, the current market presents a unique window of opportunity to lock in favorable rates before any further shifts occur. Acting now will position you to benefit from the best interest rates available and minimize any potential risks associated with waiting. Thank you all so much for your time. I'm going to stop sharing now.
Okay, so do we have any questions for staff or even OIP?
I have the simple question. How long you have been serving out in the city?
Sorry, could you please repeat the
How long Optimize investment partners work for us? Or just right now they want to present the service, or
Yeah, so
if any other the potential prospective partners we are looking for, or
so I reach out to them based on the recommendation from the various local agencies. So we've been working, I want to say it's been a while, like together for 4 months. Like, I've been doing the reference checks, and we did talk to City of Cotati regarding, Optimize, and we had really good feedback from them. Actually, I have all positive feedback from them that they're on top of, helping all the agencies with the investment suggestions.
all right, yes, and I hope now we needed to, interview them more and partner. Yeah. I want to say this is good, but maybe the comparison would be better. Thank you.
So in that regards, we did look into our purchasing policy, and because the Optimize, their service offers cash flow modeling, which is why we didn't do a formal RFP process. It's more of like, one in the industry. I did talk to the city, like the city manager did talk to City of Cotati, and that's what they went with too, which is why we're here bringing the Optimized in front of you.
So I think when we did talk about identifying if there were other entities other than Optimized that did the same type of service. So I think that's what Jack is asking, if there were others that are available out there to offer the same service.
So they claim to be one of a type because of the cash flow. There are other investment services, but they do not offer the cash flow model services.
Yeah, because we are not very familiar these kind of special investment tool. Because I just use mine in a common, the sense. When we choose our investment partner always accepted for you, and our city manager already interview at least 3 or 4, make a comparison. For example, right now looks like they can guarantee 4.2 annual growth. But under this kind of situation, these years, and if you put the money into money market and the CDs, yeah, definitely is high. But I'm not sure, in the future, and what kind of situation. If the interest rate will be lower, and then can we get a guarantee or for?
So that's the reason why we want to invest in long term, because right now we do not have that investment. We only have short term with LIF and CAM. So that's the reason why we're here to invest
I know.
for the long term.
Yeah, long term. Every company they
Right.
can offer the long term investment.
And just to be clear what we're talking about with long-term, for a municipality, this is considered long-term 5 years.
Right.
But 5 years is really, a short to intermediate term maturity length. So this isn't, and this is all fixed income. You saw the list, but just to be clear, it's all bonds. None of these are stock. I do think that so it is important to see if there's anybody else out there that offers the cash management. I think that would be good for us to do. I am also, but I do agree that the timing is perfect, and interest rates could be going down. And if interest rates go down, then there's less likelihood of us being able to buy in. I think the other thing, there's 2 other points I'd like to make is. One of the things that I did like about Optimized is that their focus is on smaller municipalities. And when you're looking for an investment advisor, I think it's really important that you're looking at that the clients that they represent are like clients, because then they're buying the type of securities that are right-sized for us, and generally you can get better pricing that way or whatever. The other thing I did ask them about their fees, which was 9 basis points, I believe.
That's correct.
So 9 basis points, so 0.9% is a good low fee. So the one other thing I would like us to do, if we choose to go with them, would be at a later date to work with the Client Action Commission to see if there's any restrictions that we'd want to do in regards to aligning with our strategies to be, fossil fuel free, whether that might mean in this portfolio not investing, say, in highway bonds for California highway bonds, in any of the CD banks, whether or not they have significant investments in fossil fuels, those type of things. So I think that would be something that we would want to discuss with the commission. This timing thing is why I think I want us to move quickly, although I would like to see if we have someone, if there is anybody else doing what they're doing with the cash management as well, so that we can do a comparative analysis.
Any other comments or thoughts? Ms. Lowe.
I want to thank you for bringing this to us, and for all of your leadership in the short time you've been here. I'm going into my 4th year on the council, and we've never had anything like this. In the interim, when we had the interim financial manager, they noticed that there was an abundance of cash, if you will, that was not being invested at all anywhere, not even in in some sort of moderate bank interest. And we have a responsibility to the community to be good fiscal managers, and this is what this is all about. While I'm sympathetic with tailoring our investments to fit our climate goals, I want to take a beat on that, because I think that's very difficult to do with the small amount of money that we have to invest, and the choices that we have, which are not, we're not like CalPERS, where we've got thousands of possible places we can go. So I think this makes sense to me, and I know Cotati is a very similarly similar size city, and that's a good recommendation. But I think we come back every year, see how it works. I mean, this is not a lifelong commitment. This is, let's see what happens. Let's get a report in a year. Let's see if the investments were good. Let's see where they went. And I think I'm ready to move forward on this. I think it's really important, especially since we have a tax measure on the ballot, that we send a signal to our community that we are going to be the best possible fiscal managers that you can ever hope for, that we're going to maximize every dollar and try to make it into two, and so that we can turn this around for our community. So I want to thank you, and I'm prepared to move forward on this.
Thank you. Mr. Wallander?
Real quick, just to confirm, this is a one-year term,
It's actually 2 years.
2-year term.
Yeah,
I think it's three.
three.
But under our professional services agreement, we can terminate it at any time.
Okay, then that's fine. Then I share the sentiment, my fellow councilwoman. I'm prepared to move on this.
Can I rebut some of the statements that you made? It is not difficult to look at portfolios such as this and see what can be done to address some of the climate issues. I have managed much smaller portfolios than this and done it quite well. So you can do it with very small amounts. So I just think, and you can, I'm not saying that we wait for that. I'm saying that we, the thing that I would like to look at is maybe approve this under the kind of like, have you look, is there anybody else out there that is also offering the cash management? And if there's not, because the cash management is important. It's more than just investing. They're actually doing a lot of the timing of the cash management, so that's not something, although they would be working very, very closely with our finance director. It's not like she doesn't have to be working on the timing of like where I have to meet our budget things and what are we going to sell, next month so that we meet that. So I think that that's a really important part of it, which would really help you balance your efforts and get the most out of your portfolio. That's the only thing that I'm a little bit uncomfortable with, this, same as Jack, that we're only looking at one.
Yeah, just to be, frankly speaking, based on the presentation, the portfolio capability just only 100 million something. We have the $38 million. Basically, they just have the similar client like us, maybe a handful, right? Yeah, we like to see any more experience. And I will not say that you are not good. Maybe just a perfect fit for us, this kind of size. But good reference, Cotati, that is good. And I would like to see if the time is a permit, always if you buy anything, you'd like to check it here, check it there, right? Even online, check it, buy a shoe, we can, because this is a really, really a big issue. Safety, growing, and just these two, yeah. So I would suggest, we like to hear a little bit more, and at least another one, make it a comparison. That is this kind of service. I don't think very specific is very common, and then I'm not sure, but I want to listen more, and then make it confident and comfortable, and to provide this job to optimize investment partners.
May I? Okay, so you had the finance committee actually interview with these folks too, and at the time we were very comfortable with this decision, and I know I still am. I would like to ask Optimized who are your competitors, and why are you the better choice?
I really appreciate that question. I'll lower my hand now because I wanted to kind of chime in on several of the topics that have got brought up. One is the biggest investment advisor in the state of California is PFM Asset Management. They were bought out by U.S. Bank about 3.5 years ago. They are the largest because they've been around the longest. They primarily serve large clients only. They only go after clients with $50 million or more in the state of California. And so they typically they're not picking up the phone and calling Prop-D and saying, hey, how can we help you? That's what Optimize does. We're very unique in that respect, where we're literally out there, marketing to agencies with less than $50 million. There are a few other firms that will do clients from the $25 to $50 million range. Several of the things that got brought up about procurement processes, I've been a purchasing agent since 2006. And when you go through a process, if the process costs you more money than the benefit you receive from the process, right now, the city's losing about $20,000 every month, waiting on hiring an investment advisor. Because you don't have a laddered portfolio, you don't have it completely structured. And when we first met with Prop-D, we gave the city some free advice. And we know that the potential is that the council could decide to go a different direction. But back in August, the city was making about 4.5% on its LAIF investments. We told Prop-D you can get 5.45% by moving that money over to CAMP. She moved that money over to CAMP, and the city has made tens of thousands of dollars more money as a result of the recommendation that we gave, knowing that we may not get the contract. But the reality is we don't really actively pursue RFPs. We try, but when you look at apples to apples, if you're trying to compare a business that's been in business for 50 years and has billions of dollars of assets under management compared to a new disruptor in the industry that's trying to create a higher service level model for our clients, it's very difficult for a smaller company to compete at that scale. We don't have hundreds of employees. We don't have hundreds of clients, but every single one of our clients is a referral client. You can talk to the city of Sassoon. Prop-D knows some folks there. They bypass the procurement process for the exact reasons I'm talking about, because the interest rates have gone down since October of last year, and the city loses money every day it doesn't act on the potential of market interest rates continuing to fall, which it has for about a year now. We do put that 30-day out clause in all of our professional services agreements for that reason. But when other competitors say they provide cash flow modeling services, I literally have been sitting as a government employee. Prop-D and I can talk about financial statements, accounting, grant management. We can talk about ERP usage. We could talk about the actual accounting entries that are required from investments. No other investment advisory firm has that experience. So the cash flow management is our high-level comment. There are competitors that say they look at the cash flows, but we cash flow your CIP projects. We cash flow everything we can possibly get our hands on, and there isn't anybody else in the industry that can do that. So we're very candid and upfront with we're growing, we're a small business, we're growing, and we want your business. But if you're to compare us to PFM, or something like that, not really a fair comparison. But I can assure you that our clients are receiving better yields and better overall service because we provide more service level. So nobody else is calling Prop-D every month and saying, hey, you have $500,000 extra in your checking account. Let's move that over to CAMP. Let's design a strategy to make sure you've got money coming back in when you need it. That is unique to OIP. It's what I came up with 7 years ago at the city of Chula Vista, and it's what I founded the company on. Happy to answer any other questions if I didn't touch on it, but that environmental issue is also a sticky subject, and we've had clients look into it and decide not to, because almost every major bank in the country that issues CDs has an investment in those other environmental issues, whether it's Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, B of A. So you start excluding almost every major bank in the country, it becomes very difficult. And so every city I've consulted with or advised, they end up not moving down that environmental path because it's overly restrictive for the goal of managing the portfolio effectively.
Thank you very much. Council, any other questions?
I just have another comment. I'm not going to go back and forth on the environmental. You and I can do that offline after at some other point of how that can be managed. But just want to let everybody on the council know too that all of the securities in the portfolio are owned by the city. So that if we were to say at some point the management, we're not, we're someone else would, down the road could be able to manage this portfolio better than they're doing. We own all those, so there's no risk involved of, with their management of who would be managing the portfolios. Those are our securities, right, Jack? So
Yes, security, and also it's an opportunity for everyone, and we need a comparison. Because when I serve another, the agency, if we spend $200,000, we need at least 3 competitors. They made a presentation. Not necessarily this kind of presentation for our city council, because I'm not an expert. And at least, you should meet at least 3, instead of just only refer to by one city, and they have good performance. But I never say they are not good, but we should have this kind of due diligence. Very important, because this money is our community's money. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Anyone in the public like to speak to this? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I move approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call?
Vice Mayor Ferrer-Rivas,
no.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Wellender,
Yes.
Councilmember Dean,
No.
Mayor Gurney.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 3-2.
Okay. I think that concludes our reports. Second public comment period. Anybody from the public like to address the council who didn't get to do so earlier? Are you sure? All right. Thank you. With that, meeting adjourned.